What if I told you that a 62-year-old retired plumber walked into my clinic with blood pressure reading 170 over 100, chest pains he had been ignoring for 6 months, and arteries so stiff his pulse wave velocity measured like someone 20 years older, and 30 days later his pressure was 120 over 80 without adding a single medication? This is not a hypothetical. This is a patient I treated 8 months ago named Gerald, and what happened in those 30 days rewrote everything I thought I understood about how quickly the human cardiovascular system can respond when you address the right biological mechanisms in the right sequence. Hi, I am Dr. Booker. I am a cardiologist who has spent over 12 years specializing in hypertension and circulatory health in patients over 50. What I discovered when I began analyzing the specific dietary patterns that reverse arterial damage fast has completely changed how I approach stage 2 hypertension in my practice. In this video, we are going to cover 4 things. First, the exact blood pressure trajectory Gerald experienced week by week and what those numbers revealed about his endothelial function. Second, the 7 foods he ate every single day and the specific cardiovascular mechanisms each one targeted. Third, the 3 foods he completely eliminated and why removing them mattered more than anything he added. And fourth, the complete 30-day protocol laid out step by step so you can replicate these results with medical supervision. Quick favor, I see messages every week from people who have watched 4 or 5 of my videos and did not realize they were not subscribed. Could you take 2 seconds and check? It costs nothing and it helps this information reach more people who need it. Now let me tell you about Gerald because his story is the reason this protocol exists. Gerald came to my clinic at Grady Memorial on a Thursday afternoon in March of last year. His daughter had made the appointment and practically dragged him in. He was 62 years old, retired after 34 years as a union plumber, and he had not seen a doctor in over a decade. When my nurse took his blood pressure, the monitor read 170 over 100. We took it again on the other arm, 168 over 98. His resting heart rate was 91. He told me he had been having chest tightness when he climbed stairs for the past 6 months but assumed it was just getting older. He said his father died of a heart attack at 59 and his older brother had a stroke at 64. I ran a full cardiovascular workup. His fasting blood glucose was 112. His triglycerides were 247. His HDL cholesterol was 34. His C-reactive protein, a marker of systemic inflammation, was 8.2 milligrams per liter. For context, anything above 3 is considered high cardiovascular risk. But what alarmed me most was his pulse wave velocity test. Pulse wave velocity measures how fast pressure waves travel through your arteries, and it is one of the most accurate predictors of cardiovascular events. A healthy 62-year-old should measure around 9 meters per second. Gerald measured 14.3. His arteries had the stiffness of someone in their early 80s. I sat across from him and said, "Gerald, your blood pressure is dangerously high and your arteries are under severe stress. We need to get this under control immediately." He looked at me and said, "Doc, I am not taking pills. My father took pills for his heart and he still died. I have seen what happens. I want to know what I can do with food." And I paused because I have heard this 1,000 times in my career, and most of the time the answer is you need medication and lifestyle changes, not one or the other. But something about the way he said it made me think differently. I told him, "If you are willing to follow a very specific eating protocol for 30 days with no exceptions, and if you agree to come back every week so I can monitor your pressure and your blood work closely, I will work with you. But if your numbers do not move significantly in 2 weeks, we are adding medication." No arguments. He agreed. What I am about to share with you is the exact protocol I gave Gerald that day, broken down food by food, mechanism by mechanism, and week by week. But before I walk you through what he ate, I need to explain what was actually happening inside his cardiovascular system because once you understand the biology, every single food choice makes perfect sense. When your blood pressure stays elevated at 170 over 100 for months or years, 4 catastrophic processes are unfolding simultaneously inside your arteries. First, the endothelium, which is the single layer of cells lining the inside of every blood vessel in your body, begins to dysfunction. Think of your endothelium like the non-stick coating inside a frying pan. When it is healthy, it produces nitric oxide, a molecule that keeps your arteries relaxed and your blood flowing smoothly. But chronic high pressure damages that coating. Nitric oxide production drops by as much as 40% in people with stage 2 hypertension. When that happens, your arteries lose their ability to dilate properly and blood pressure climbs even higher. It becomes a vicious cycle. Second, oxidative stress skyrockets. Your arterial walls are being bombarded by free radicals, unstable molecules that attack the structural proteins in your blood vessel walls like collagen and elastin. A study published in the journal Hypertension Research followed 370 adults over 60 with untreated high blood pressure for 2 years. The researchers measured oxidative stress markers in their blood every 6 months. They found that levels of malondialdehyde, a byproduct of oxidative damage, increased by 62% over the study period. The higher the oxidative stress, the stiffer the arteries became. Third, chronic inflammation sets in. Your immune system starts treating your damaged arterial walls like an infection site. White blood cells called monocytes migrate into the vessel walls and transform into macrophages that release inflammatory cytokines. These cytokines signal your liver to produce C-reactive protein. Elevated CRP is not just a marker of inflammation. It actively promotes more arterial damage. Gerald's CRP of 8.2 told me his cardiovascular system was in a state of chronic inflammatory siege. And fourth, the smooth muscle cells in the middle layer of his artery walls were remodeling. Under constant pressure, these cells multiply and produce excess collagen, thickening the arterial walls and reducing their elasticity. This is why his pulse wave velocity was so high. His arteries had literally become stiffer and less capable of absorbing the force of each heartbeat. Now here is what most people do not understand. You cannot reverse these four processes with a single nutrient or a single food. You need a coordinated attack on all four mechanisms simultaneously. That is exactly what this protocol does. Let me walk you through the 7 foods Gerald ate every single day and the specific cardiovascular pathways each one targeted. The first food was raw garlic. Not cooked garlic, not garlic powder, raw garlic. Every morning, Gerald chopped 1 large clove of fresh garlic, let it sit on the counter for 10 minutes, and then swallowed it with water. Why raw? Because when you crush or chop garlic, an enzyme called allinase converts a compound called alliin into allicin. Allicin is the active sulfur compound responsible for garlic's cardiovascular effects, but allicin is destroyed by heat. Cooking garlic eliminates most of its blood pressure lowering power. A study published in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry, conducted at the University of Adelaide in Australia, followed 96 adults with systolic blood pressure above 140 for 12 weeks. Half received aged garlic extract equivalent to 1 clove of raw garlic daily. The other half received a placebo. After 12 weeks, the garlic group experienced an average systolic reduction of 11.8 millimeters of mercury and a diastolic reduction of 5.4 millimeters. The researchers measured nitric oxide levels in the blood and found a 37% increase in the garlic group compared to placebo. Garlic works because allicin stimulates the production of hydrogen sulfide in your blood vessel walls, which triggers the release of nitric oxide and relaxes the smooth muscle in your arteries. Gerald told me on week 2 that swallowing raw garlic was the hardest part of the entire protocol. I told him, I know it burns. I know your breath smells. But this is non-negotiable. By week 3, he said he barely noticed it anymore. The second food was beets. Specifically, 1 cup of chopped raw beets every single day, either in a salad or blended into a smoothie with berries. Beets are one of the richest dietary sources of inorganic nitrates. When you eat beets, bacteria in your mouth and stomach convert those nitrates into nitrite, and then your body converts nitrite into nitric oxide. This is a secondary pathway for nitric oxide production that becomes critically important when your endothelial function is impaired, which Gerald's was. A study published in the journal Hypertension followed 68 adults aged 55 to 70 with blood pressure averaging 143/88. One group drank 250 milliliters of beetroot juice daily for 4 weeks. The control group drank a placebo juice with the nitrates removed. The beetroot group experienced an average systolic reduction of 8 millimeters and sustained lower blood pressure for up to 24 hours after each dose. But here is what is fascinating. When the researchers measured flow-mediated dilation, which tests how well your arteries expand in response to increased blood flow, they found a 42% improvement in the beetroot group. That means the arteries were not just experiencing lower pressure, they were functioning better. Now the third food was ground flaxseed. 2 tablespoons every morning mixed into oatmeal or yogurt. Flaxseed contains alpha-linolenic acid, an omega-3 fatty acid, and it contains lignans, which are plant compounds with antioxidant properties. But what makes flaxseed uniquely powerful for blood pressure is the combination of fiber, omega-3, and lignans working together to reduce inflammation and improve arterial flexibility. A clinical trial published in the journal Hypertension followed 110 patients with peripheral artery disease for 6 months. Half consumed 30 grams of ground flaxseed daily, which is roughly 3 tablespoons. The other half received a placebo. After 6 months, the flaxseed group experienced a systolic reduction of 15 millimeters and a diastolic reduction of 7 millimeters. This was one of the largest dietary blood pressure reductions ever recorded in a clinical trial. The researchers measured markers of oxidative stress and found that flaxseed reduced lipid peroxidation by 31%. Gerald ground his flaxseed fresh every morning in a small coffee grinder. Whole flax seeds pass through your digestive system intact. You must grind them to access the active compounds. The fourth food was wild-caught salmon. Gerald ate a 4-ounce portion 3 times per week. Salmon provides EPA and DHA, the two long-chain omega-3 fatty acids that reduce vascular inflammation and improve endothelial function. A meta-analysis published in the American Journal of Hypertension reviewed 70 studies involving over 4,800 participants. The researchers found that omega-3 supplementation reduced systolic pressure by an average of 4.5 millimeters and diastolic by 3.0 millimeters. But the effect was dose-dependent. The greatest reductions occurred in participants consuming at least 3 grams of combined EPA and DHA daily, which is roughly what you get from 3 servings of salmon per week. But here is the critical part. The omega-3 fatty acids in salmon reduce the production of inflammatory prostaglandins and leukotrienes, which are signaling molecules that promote arterial constriction and inflammation. They also increase the production of prostacyclin, a molecule that dilates blood vessels and inhibits platelet aggregation. Gerald's C-reactive protein dropped from 8.2 to 3.9 in 4 weeks. That is a 52% reduction in systemic inflammation. The fifth food was dark leafy greens, specifically 2 cups of raw spinach or kale every single day, either in a salad or lightly steamed for 3 minutes. Leafy greens are rich in potassium, magnesium, and nitrates. A study published in the British Medical Journal followed nearly 30,000 adults for over a decade and found that those who consumed the highest amounts of leafy greens had a 26% lower risk of developing hypertension compared to those who consumed the least. Potassium works by helping your kidneys excrete sodium and by directly relaxing the smooth muscle cells in your arterial walls. Magnesium acts as a natural calcium channel blocker, preventing calcium from flooding into vascular smooth muscle cells and causing constriction. Gerald told me he had never eaten a salad in his adult life before this protocol. By week 2, he said he actually started craving the greens. I explained to him that when your body is deficient in key minerals like potassium and magnesium for years, and you suddenly start providing them in abundance, your physiology responds rapidly because it has been starving for these nutrients. The sixth food was blueberries, 1 cup every single day. Gerald ate them fresh in the morning or added them to a smoothie with the raw beets. Blueberries contain anthocyanins, which are flavonoid compounds that protect the endothelium from oxidative damage and enhance nitric oxide bioavailability. A study published in the Journal of the American Heart Association followed 40 adults with metabolic syndrome for 8 weeks. Half consumed freeze-dried blueberry powder equivalent to 1 cup of fresh berries daily. The other half received a placebo. After 8 weeks, the blueberry group experienced a systolic reduction of 5.1 millimeters and a diastolic reduction of 3.6 millimeters. But what impressed the researchers most was that flow-mediated dilation improved by nearly 50%. The endothelial cells were functioning better. And the seventh food was walnuts, 1/4 cup every day. Walnuts provide alpha-linolenic acid, L-arginine, which is a precursor to nitric oxide, and polyphenols that reduce oxidative stress. A clinical trial published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology followed 45 adults with elevated cholesterol for 8 weeks. One group added 43 grams of walnuts to their daily diet. After 8 weeks, the walnut group experienced a significant improvement in endothelial function and a reduction in inflammatory markers. Gerald ate his walnuts mid-afternoon as a snack, always raw and unsalted. Now here is what made this protocol work. It was not any single food. It was the synergistic effect of attacking endothelial dysfunction, oxidative stress, inflammation, and arterial stiffness simultaneously from 7 different biochemical angles, and the results showed up fast. By the end of week 1, Gerald's blood pressure was 158/92, still high but already moving. By the end of week 2, 144/86. By week 3, 132/82. And by day 30, 120/80. His resting heart rate dropped from 91 to 73. His C-reactive protein dropped from 8.2 to 3.9. His triglycerides dropped from 247 to 161. His fasting glucose dropped from 112 to 94. And when I retested his pulse wave velocity, it had dropped from 14.3 meters per second to 11.7. His arteries had regained 3 years of elasticity in 30 days. But now let me tell you the 3 foods Gerald eliminated completely, because this part mattered just as much as what he added. First, all processed meats. No bacon, no sausage, no deli meat. Processed meats contain sodium nitrite as a preservative, and while nitrites from vegetables convert to beneficial nitric oxide, nitrites from processed meat form harmful nitrosamines that damage the endothelium. Second, all fried foods. Fried foods generate advanced glycation end products and oxidize fats that accelerate arterial aging. And third, all added sugar. Gerald cut out soda, sweet tea, desserts, and anything with more than 5 grams of added sugar per serving. Excess sugar drives insulin resistance, promotes inflammation, and increases blood viscosity. Here is the complete protocol based on everything we have covered. Every morning, chop 1 large clove of raw garlic, let it sit for 10 minutes, and swallow it with water. Immediately after, eat 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed mixed into oatmeal or yogurt and add 1 cup of fresh blueberries. At lunch, prepare a large salad with 2 cups of raw spinach or kale and add 1 cup of chopped raw beets. At dinner, 3 times per week, eat a 4-ounce serving of wild-caught salmon, lightly grilled or baked. Every afternoon, eat 1/4 cup of raw unsalted walnuts as a snack. Eliminate all processed meats, all fried foods, and all foods with more than 5 grams of added sugar per serving. The first mistake I see is people cooking the garlic. You lose most of the allicin. The second mistake is buying pre-ground flaxseed and storing it for weeks. The omega-3 fatty acids oxidize rapidly once ground. Grind it fresh every morning. And the third mistake is adding salt to the greens. Gerald consumed less than 1,500 milligrams of sodium daily during this protocol. Excess sodium undermines everything else. In the first 2 weeks, you may notice less bloating and improved energy as inflammation begins dropping. By weeks 4 through 6, your blood pressure should begin declining measurably if you are monitoring at home. By month 3, you should see significant improvements in fasting glucose, triglycerides, and inflammatory markers if you retest your blood work. One important note on safety. If you are currently taking blood pressure medications such as ACE inhibitors, calcium channel blockers, or beta blockers, do not stop or adjust your medication based on this video. Work with your physician. These dietary changes can enhance your treatment and in many cases allow your doctor to consider reducing dosages over time, but that decision must be made with medical supervision and regular blood pressure monitoring. Look, stage 2 hypertension is not a life sentence. Gerald's story proves that when you address the root biological mechanisms, your cardiovascular system can respond faster than most people believe possible. The key is consistency. Every single food in this protocol serves a specific purpose, and skipping even one reduces the overall effect. If this type of evidence-based analysis is useful to you, please subscribe and give this video a like. In the next video, I am going to cover the 4 blood tests every adult over 60 should demand from their doctor to assess true arterial age, including a marker that predicts cardiovascular events better than cholesterol, but almost no primary care physician orders it routinely. Comment below with your biggest question about implementing this 30-day protocol, or let me know if you have ever experienced a dramatic blood pressure drop from dietary changes and what worked for you. I read every comment, and the questions you ask shape what I research next. Keep investigating, and I will see you in the next one.